Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain clients to your veterinary hospital using digital marketing. My name is Brandon Brashears. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 5 most important marketing activities for your veterinary practice to ensure that you're successful. I think 2024 is probably going to be the most challenging year for the majority of practices that you've seen in a decade. I am seeing a ton of stuff that I think is very troubling, and I think probably most practices out there are feeling it. When it comes to price sensitivity, when it comes to number of clients, number of appointments, holes in the schedule, how do we fix this? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. Before we begin, just a few things. First, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. And if you find value in this podcast, it would mean the world to me if you shared it with somebody that you think could benefit. I really appreciate you sharing this. And also, if you leave reviews on Spotify or iTunes, that's also helpful getting the word out. So I appreciate you for listening. Before we begin, just a quick note from 2 sponsors that we have in this episode. This episode is sponsored by CallRail, and I have a special offer for listeners of this podcast at veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/CallRail. If you've ever wondered, where are my clients coming from? How are people finding out about me? Which channels of marketing are actually providing a return? If you ever asked yourself any of those questions, which every practice I know has, CallRail is a great solution for you. What CallRail does is it gives you detailed call tracking so that you can identify exactly which traffic sources are turning into customers and clients and which ones aren't. So if you would like better handle on your data, if you'd like to understand where your clients are coming from, which marketing channels are working, and then also it gives you really great qualitative data too, like how are my CSRs doing when it comes to handling phone calls? Is there any improvements that we could make in our conversion rates and how we're talking to clients? It gives you all of that data, and I suggest it for all of my ad clients that I work with. So if you'd like $100 off CallRail, and the thing that I love about it too is it's all month to month. There's no contracts, and it's a really high quality service that works really, really well. It's also very easy to set up. So if you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/CallRail, you can check it out and get $100 off. For most practices, it's anywhere from $50 to $100 per month. So this will let you try it out and see exactly how it works in your practice. This episode is being sponsored by 2 websites by Brad Haven. We have usedvetequipment.com and newvetequipment.com. For over 9 years now, usedvetequipment.com has been helping vets to buy and sell used equipment. You can save money when you buy used everything from cages, kennels, pumps, x-ray equipment, lasers, ultrasounds, dental equipment, surgery equipment, lab equipment from Abaxis, IDEX, and Heska, tables, tubs, and sinks, vet trucks, and vet boxes. What do you have to sell? At usedvetequipment.com, they bring the buyer and seller together. Also, if you're looking for new veterinary equipment with amazing warranties, check out newvetequipment.com, where they show you the price up front. They have digital x-ray equipment, dental x-ray equipment, ultrasound equipment, LED surgery lighting, surgery tables, autoclaves. When you go to newvetequipment.com, you'll clearly see the price on every single item for sale, and you'll also know what the warranty is so that you can buy without regret. So 2023 is coming to an end rapidly. And there is a consistent and troubling theme that I'm seeing when it comes to people that are reaching out and practices that are needing help. People are slowing down. Practices are slowing down at a rate that they have not seen or expected. I have a client that has had one of their doctors booked for over a year in the past, and they have openings in the next week. It is common that practices are seeing openings regularly when they didn't have anything. And everybody's scrambling and trying to figure out what exactly is it that we should be doing. It can be really scary if all of a sudden things slow down. So if you're not at the point yet where it's slowing down, I think that there's a lot of economic factors that are going to be causing people to really see the vet less frequently. So before we begin and get into today's episode, I think that just acknowledging in just general that costs are typically skyrocketing, cost of living. And I know that the Fed is probably going to be reducing interest rates here soon, which is going to have some impact on capital availability. But even if the Fed does reduce rates here and try to shift things around, I think that that's probably going to cause some increase in housing expense and other things like that. So I think kind of regardless of what happens for short-term policy, I think this year is going to be very challenging. And so it's important to know what's going on in the world, what is going on in your clients' lives. And things are more expensive than ever. People's incomes are not keeping up with costs in general. When you're talking about everyday type people who have jobs and things, and so it's important to say, okay, how are we going to be able to, number one, navigate our practice in a way that's going to grow the way that we want to grow, and number two, what are the ways that we can really double down on our strengths, get better clients, and use this as an opportunity to grow in the direction that we want to. I'm a big believer in that the overall economy doesn't necessarily have to affect your economy, right? It's going to give you some input. It's hard to, say that you're completely unattached from outcomes out there. But in periods of difficulty, there are always tremendous opportunities every single time. So we need to always, I think, have the outlook that difficult times and difficult economic cycles are in fact opportunities for you. Because if you're facing difficulty, that means everybody else is too. And so you can choose how you react to it. And then number two is make sure that you are accurately growing and focusing on what you do want rather than what you don't want. And I think that's an important distinction. You should always be focused on what you do want, not what you don't want, because you'll attract what you think about. And same thing goes for marketing. So when you're thinking about the types of clients you don't like, if you have that really well defined and you're like, I don't want this type of people, usually you'll have more of those type of things because you're not focusing on who you do want. You're focusing on what you don't want. And so it's just a weird thing that happens. And I think it's important to realize that. So number one pillar, we're going to go over 5 pillars and kind of activities that are going to help you set up your practice for success in 2024 and beyond. If you're listening to this in the future, these are fundamentals that I see most practices are not doing. And it's crazy to me that most are not doing this. I can think of seriously one client who's doing all of these things and they are growing like crazy, but most people don't do this and it is hurting you. If you can just monitor and track a lot of these things, you're going to be far more successful. And we'll talk about how wildly successful you can be in your practices marketing if you're doing these things. So the number one thing, I wonder if you can guess what I'm going to say, is tracking and data. You need to have your tracking and data down. So where are your clients coming from? The easiest way, number one, to get this, in my opinion, and again, it's going to depend on your practice. We'll break this down in just a second. But the easiest way to see where people are coming from is install CallRail. You need to have CallRail or call tracking software on your site. What does CallRail do? Well, it swaps out phone numbers so that you can see where your clients are coming from based on the source. You can see how the conversations are going, what people are talking about. You can get qualitative data, but you can also have conversion data that is telling you exactly by source how many people are coming from organic search, how many people are coming from Google My Business organic, how many people are coming from Google ads or Facebook ads or Facebook social organic. It breaks all of that down in a way that's actually very simple. And I think that it used to be like, oh, let's try it out and see, and at least set a baseline so that you can understand what's coming from where. But in the future, I just don't see conversion tracking becoming any less important. When we look at advertising and social media, the world has really changed ever since TikTok became popular. And a really quick, refined version of that is it is no longer about your connection to people or businesses. It's more about your connection to interest. And so the AI tools and the AI algorithms out there are refined in a way that it helps you see more of what you're interested in. The ad platforms are using this same AI algorithms out there. So if you think you're on TikTok or you're on Instagram Reels and you're just consistently seeing stuff that is interesting to you, it's because these platforms know what you're interested in. They know that you have pets or you don't have pets or you have kids or you like farming or you like sushi, whatever it is, it knows, and it's able to then show content that is really relevant. And I want you to think about this. Next time you're on a social platform of any kind, think about what percentage of the content is engaging or interesting to you. And probably, especially with the short video format, it's probably mostly coming from people that you're not following. So if you're able to give Google or Facebook or TikTok or any of these platforms conversion data and say, these are who my customers are, it's going to be able to then take that data and find more of them. Just in the same way that engaging content is finding audiences, your engaging offers are going to also find audiences as well. And so this is a huge pain point for veterinary practices. How do we communicate who our audience is to these platforms, and how are we reporting conversions in real time? Now, so I think that CallRail is the easiest way to do that. I hope this is making sense. I'm trying to kind of give you the highest level overview as possible. But I think it's incredibly important to be tracking and knowing exactly where your sources are coming from. And the cool thing about CallRail is it does it very easily. You have to have Tag Manager. You have to have a Google Webmaster Tools integration so that you can install a call extension link if you're using Google Ads. If you're not, no problem. But very simply, it tells you exactly where calls are coming from by source. And then you can also measure quality. So it just gives you so many good details that is very, very valuable. And then most importantly, it gives you a way to report conversions to these platforms. And that's going to help you, I think, just in so many ways. If we look at where platforms are going when it comes to ads, there's less and less when it comes to targeting available. And so they're just basically giving people, who's your client profile, and then we'll go out and find more people like that. So incredibly important. And I think I told you a caveat when we started this. Call tracking software is not as important if you're doing more online bookings. And most practices that I see are still not doing online bookings as a majority of their bookings. But I do think it's important to note that if you have an online booking system, make sure that they give you source tracking. And most of them don't have it. And so it's really important, in my opinion, that you start demanding for source tracking. We need to know exactly where these sources are coming from. We need to know how many are coming from Google My Business, how many are coming from organic search, and then even break it down by search engine. Which ones are coming from Bing? Which ones are coming from Google? Which ones are coming from social? You have to have these things. And most practices are paying really good money. This is one of my biggest pet peeves for their online marketing software. And it's just a glorified online calendar that doesn't really do much for you. So if you're not getting reporting, and if it's not meeting the needs of your clients, and it's not making it really easy to convert people to book online, and with that, I'd say make sure that it integrates into your practice management software. Make sure that it can book people in real time. It's not just sending a request and then you have to go back and forth, which there's a lot of companies that do that, where it's like, we got a request for 4 p.m. on Tuesday, regardless of if that slot's already filled. So if you're doing online booking, you need to demand, and it's gotten to the point where I think you need to demand from these booking software companies that you have source tracking and that it makes it an actual online appointment. Okay. The last piece of data that I think is incredibly just imperative that you get down is know what your clients are worth. You need to know what they're worth on a first visit, how much they're worth on an annual basis, and then how much they're worth on a lifetime basis. And this is going to give you return on investment figures. So many practices I work with are saying to me, what's my return on ad spend, or what's my return on investment for ads? And I can't tell them what that is because they can't tell me how much their clients are worth or what their first visits are on average. So if possible, if you can actually break down visits by client and break it down by category, like you can do with Google Ads, which is really cool. If you can measure and line up callers with revenue, it's going to make it far more effective to say, this campaign, for example, made us $15,000 last month. We spent $1,000 on it. That's a really sweet return. Let's keep going. Let's see how we can get more of this. But if you don't know that number, don't expect that you're going to be able to be successful. And there's no marketer on the planet who can, make things work without knowing what our numbers are. And so, expecting that somebody's going to just double or triple your money, hopefully. But if you don't actually know what people are worth when it comes into, client revenue, There's no way that you're going to be able to track return on investment. It's all going to be guessing. And I will say this too. I understand that there's limitations to what people can get in terms of revenue numbers and things like that. So we're always working to do our best with what we have. And there's a lot of clients that I have who don't have those numbers readily available. And so we're just trying to figure out, volume of clients. So the best number is revenue, actual revenue. The second best number is average revenue. The third best number is average number of clients, right? And so you just break it down qualitatively. What's the best quality data that you can use to measure and track your marketing? And, I would say tracking total number of clients is better than tracking nothing. But even better than that is tracking total revenue per client. That's new clients in your practice. And then by source, right? So the more refined you get, the better. But if you don't have anything to measure, just pick something. And I think we're getting close to the point where you need to know these numbers. It's not going to be, hopefully we can keep the doors open. If you don't know these numbers, I think you're going to be in big trouble. And I'll give you a quick example of why I think that is. So number one, if you're running ads and the practice down the street from you is running ads, and I wouldn't, by the way, worry too much about corporates. They don't have a good handle on this number in general, like the large corporate groups. They don't know what their return is. They don't know how much they're spending to acquire customers for the most part. There are absolutely outliers, but most don't. So let's say that you have a practice that's sophisticated, that's down the street, and they're competing against you, and they know for sure what their clients are worth. And they know for sure how much it costs to acquire a new surgery client. You're not going to compete with them. They're going to be able to outspend you in areas that make sense, and they're not going to waste money on things that don't make sense. So if your competition has good tracking in place, if the only thing that they had that was different was that they knew their numbers, they're going to beat you hands down every single time. So knowing your numbers could be the difference between being in business and not being in business. And especially as costs rise and the revenue potential goes down, right? If there's a squeezing of the economy and there's fewer potential clients in a market, then you need to know what your numbers are. So in general, for tracking and data, we need to have CallRail tracking. We need to know source tracking from booked appointments. And I think that those are the two things that you need to have in general. It's great to have Google Analytics. Most practices I know never look at their analytics and sources. And also, if you have Google Analytics, but you don't have conversion tracking in place, it's all kind of like vanity metrics where you're hoping that these two things are going together. But I mean, even if you had Google Analytics in place, and let's say you had a blog post that went viral and you got 1 million visits to your website, if they're not in the area and they don't convert, what's the point? So that might be a controversial take, but if you don't have conversion tracking in place, it's good to see how people are interacting with your site. There's a lot of data that you can use, but ultimately it doesn't really affect your bottom line. I mean, how many times have you looked on your site to see what the average duration is by source? You know how long your typical Google Ads person stays versus your Facebook person? You probably don't know that number. And so I would say, especially for busy professionals, knowing your conversion numbers is what's going to be the game changer for you. The next thing that you need to do for 2024 and beyond is you need to market to your own list. And we are so past the point of, I was talking to Seth Godin, several months ago, and I said, they're just too busy. They don't have time to create email autoresponders, and they don't have time to do outbound marketing to their list. And he stopped me. He said, wait a second, you can't say that you don't have time for it, because that is your business. And I think that was a really important statement that he made. This is your business. You must market to your list. And I will say that I think you need to do it at least once a month. At least. It probably needs to be more frequent than once a month even. I would say probably once a week would be ideal. And if you say once a week is too frequent to be emailing and messaging my clients, they're going to get annoyed with me. Make it so that it's not annoying. Provide value. Show up. Stay in touch with them. I think you need to make it so that it's not annoying. And if you're only showing up to be transactional with your list, I think that is going to bite you, because people don't want to do business with brands that just show up and and ask for revenue and money. Make it about value and make it about engagement and relationship. I think that that's probably the biggest opportunity for almost every veterinary practice that I talk to. I would say, I'm thinking real quick here, I would say 90% of practices are not communicating on a regular basis. And that's just anecdotal. I don't have a survey or anything, but it's wild how few practices actively send out any kind of communication other than like reminders before a visit or something. But being proactive and engaging and building community inside of your list and treating it like how you would want to be treated. And, people are just not doing that. So when we're talking about marketing to your list, you need two things, in my opinion. Number one, you need to have text messaging and I think web chat. And I think you need to have an online chat widget. They're so easy to integrate now so that people can chat if they have a question on your website. And then you need to have text messaging, and that's one-to-one and one-to-many. And there's a lot of really great programs out there. Twilio is fantastic. Integrations with Twilio. I'm actually launching a beta group for if you're interested and you'd like to market more to your own list. Send me a message at brandon@veterinarymarketingpodcast.com, and I'll get you on this beta to try it for free. But you need to have a one-to-one and a one-to-many so you can send out blasts for your text messaging, and then you can also communicate back and forth. And then you need to send out emails consistently and just start with once a month. And it's easier than ever to do that because of ChatGPT and tools like that. And if you haven't done so already, check out last episode where I talk about Vet Marketing Guru. I've already set up the prompts for you so that you can quickly and easily start and have a great starting place. And I would say too that hiring a veterinary specific copywriter to build these things out for you, if you don't have the time, that would be a fantastic use of capital and you would see a return on investment for that. So I've had Sarah Rumpel from Rumpus Writing on. I would highly suggest reaching out to her because she does great work, and it's going to be in your voice and things. But if you don't have that as an opportunity and you don't have the capital to put behind that, ChatGPT is fantastic, and that Vet Marketing Guru tool is a great place to start. It gives you at least not a blank page. If you're writing something and you don't know what to do or what to say, just talk to it like you're talking to me, basically. But within messaging and marketing to your own lists, you have three types of emails. You have transactional emails and messages. You have relational, which you're building relationship, and then you have informational and value. And so make it not just sending to show up to ask for something. Don't ask for appointments. Give people value and find out what people are interested in. So that is, I think, going to be a big component for practices that are busy versus practices that are empty this year coming up. So that's number two. And number three thing that you need to be doing for this year and beyond is you need to have inbound marketing. And so what do I mean by that? You need to have leads that are calling you and your practice, and you need to have traffic systems set up in place. I do paid ads, and I am a huge fan of paid advertising because you can turn it on, you can turn it off, you can turn it up, you can turn it down, you can set targets really well. And having the ability to increase traffic, especially when things are slower, is just paramount. You need to be doing some type of inbound marketing, some type of paid advertising, so that if things do get slowed down or they're bad, maybe they're not yet there, or maybe they are, but if you wait till too long where you're like in a place that you have to figure things out and you're slow and you're not sure what to do, and then all of a sudden you're going to start, I mean, it's better than nothing, but the chances of you being successful are not as high as if you had started maybe a little bit before you needed it. I think of it like insurance. Most practices have insurance. I would say every practice has insurance, right? And you don't have insurance because you actively need it. You have it in case you're going to need it. And so having paid traffic that you can turn off or turn on, and you've tested things out, That's like an insurance policy for staying busy, keeping revenue coming in. So that is incredibly important. And that's going to tie really into the next piece that we have that I think is incredibly important for 2024. And you need to have offers. What is an offer? An offer is something that you're advertising or marketing to your audience so that they, number one, can understand the value that you're conveying. And it provides value that is beyond just the monetary value that you're asking for something. So what do I mean by that? So you need to be able to communicate the value that you're promising in exchange for your client's money. If people don't know what is different between your practice and the practice down the street, the only thing they're going to be able to compare you and your practice on is money. And most practices don't provide an adequate representation of what the value that they're offering is. And offers help you to do that. So when you're thinking about how do we attract more dog owners, how do we attract more cat owners, how do we attract more of the specific services, we have to look at what is it that we're offering and how can we make that appear to be more valuable. When we look at value, there's a pretty simple equation that was coined by Alex Ramsey called the value equation. His book, $100 Million Offers, is one of my favorite books of all time. And I would highly suggest that you take a look at that because it's going to provide a great framework for creating offers that give you tons of value. But let's dive really quick into what is the value equation for offers. So the value equation has 4 specific parts. You have the dream outcome, you have the perceived likelihood of success, then you have the time required to achieve that, and then the effort required to achieve that. So if you can make the perceived outcome or the likelihood of success more likely and increase that, while at the same time decreasing the time and the effort required, it makes something more valuable. Let's give a quick example that everybody can understand very quickly. So if you wanted to change the way you look, let's say you wanted to lose weight, let's say there's only 2 options here. One option is liposuction surgery. Okay, and the other option is diet and exercise. If we look at liposuction, the dream outcome is the same as diet and exercise, but what's the perceived likelihood of success? It's like 100%, unless you die in surgery, right, or something. But if you go to do a liposuction surgery, you can say with confidence that as you come out, you will be transformed. So very, very high perceived likelihood of success. The time required to achieve that is the time for surgery and recovery, and the effort required is very low again. You're going to have to go show up, and that's why liposuction is expensive. If you look at diet and exercise, it's free, right? It still gets you to that dream outcome, but the perceived likelihood of success is lower because it takes a ton of work. How many times have people started and stopped diets, right? All the time. It happens to me all the time. Time required, it takes months, maybe years, right? And the effort required is massive. And so that's why when there's a value proposition between liposuction and diets and exercise, one is very expensive and one is not as expensive. So same thing with your practice. What is the dream outcome? Why are people coming into your practice? What do they want? What do they get? What do they look like before and what do they look like after? What is the perceived likelihood that they're going to get that dream outcome? How can you improve that dream outcome? How can you improve the likelihood that they're going to get there? Especially with dental procedures, any kind of surgical procedures, you can really stack the value by talking about training and equipment, experience, all of these different things are going to help to improve that perceived likelihood of success. And then time required and effort required. If you can minimize those things and think about how can I make this as easy as possible for my clients? How can I make this as painless as possible for my clients so that it's super easy to do business with you? I think that you can really stand out from your competitors because nobody else is laying this out. Nobody's explaining what goes into it. Nobody's explaining how we are helping to improve the likelihood of success for outcomes. So it helps you to stand out and creates value around something other than simply here's what it costs. So have offers that you understand. And I think part of that too, in creating offers for your practice, is going to be really understanding what your clients value. And not just your clients, but your ideal clients. What do they value? What makes them tick? And why is it that they're taking action with you? Especially if you're charging more than normal. What is it that people really love about your practice? Is it that you're open 7 days a week, that you have convenient hours that are after hours? I mean, there's so many practices that are open from 8 to 5 p.m., right? And the only time that you can ever come in is if you take a day off of work. For the average person, it's kind of inconvenient, it's expensive, it's time consuming. How can we make this more convenient for clients so that it doesn't disrupt their whole day, so that they still get their pet the great care that they need, but it's in a way that's more accommodating? Things like that. And then when you create those types of things, you don't keep it secret. You tell them in explicit terms, here's the pain point you're feeling. You ever wish you could take better care of your pet, but you have a job, and so it's really inconvenient for you to come on either a day off, call in for a sick day, and you end up wasting your entire day in the vet's office. It's not the best use of your time, and you probably want something that's better. So tell people, here's what you're feeling, here's what you're experiencing. And very few practices are actively doing that and helping to convey frustration. If you think about times when you've either made a change in your life for a service provider, or think about the frustration that you felt waiting for a delivery for like an appliance, or for a tradesperson that's like coming to set up internet, right? Those types of bad experiences, think about how you felt, and you would have probably paid a lot more if you could have a good experience, consistency, and funnel those types of emotions into creating offers, because it's going to help you to get value that is created in a way that is not just around money. Especially if you want to be selling your services at a premium or above average, you're going to have to figure out how to package it in a way that does that. The last bit here is we have to maximize what we already have. And I think it's incredibly important that we are maximizing every traffic channel that we have, every client that we have, and really providing great experience for everything. So number one, I would say set up a referral program. If you don't have that, you should have that. Have it in a consistent way that you can get people to refer their friends and family in the immediate area. I think it's important that you're marketing internally. So again, messaging and calling and any type of medium that you can to get your current client base in more frequently, so that you can increase your annual average revenue per client, so that you can increase the average order value for every single visit, and work to provide the best service so that everybody gets what they need. But with that, you're going to then be able to charge more and help to make sure that you have better compliance, better outcomes, all of those types of things. In maximizing what you currently have, I think it's incredibly important to consistently ask for reviews and have a way to do that with, I would say, preferably text messages. People can do it very easily on the phone. So I think text messages would be great because you have high open rates and it's an easy way to convert. The next thing is that I think you should be doing rewards and retention of some kind, whether it's a rewards program in your practice or wellness plan, something to bind people to your practice so that they don't go elsewhere, especially if you have times where you can't see your clients right away. Having some kind of moat around your practice that's going to keep them there, keep them coming back, even if they have, like, let's say somebody's going on vacation, they didn't make plans right away, and so they need their dog vaccinated so they can do boarding. If you don't have any appointments available in the next week, how are you going to keep them coming back when they go to the practice down the street? You need to have something in place. And so I think those things pay for themselves dramatically. It also reduces the need to do any type of discounting. So you can point people towards rewards or wellness plans if they're asking or wanting discounts. So I think if you can apply just a few of these things, I kind of went in order of what I would do if it was my practice. Number one, I would make sure that we have tracking and data down. This is going to inform everything that we do, and it's going to give us a good indication of how we're doing on a regular basis. Number two, market to our own lists. This is super self-explanatory, and very few practices are doing it. Know that it is a little bit painful to set up, but once you have it set up, it's going to consistently produce for you. I love doing activities that once you set them up, they keep generating results for you. And internal marketing with text and email and setting up systems and automations, those are the things that are going to keep paying off in the future for you. Number three is get some kind of inbound marketing. If you want help with this, you can go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com, send me a message on my website, and set up a time to talk about generating traffic for your ideal clients. Number four, you need to have offers that create value and sell. It's going to help you to separate yourself from everyone else in the pack, all of your competition. And then number five is maximize the things that you currently have. So set up referral programs, market internally, increase your annual visit values, your annual value of a client, average order value, ask for reviews, and then reward and retain. If you have any questions about any of this, or you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope that you found value. And if you did, please be sure to share this episode with somebody you think would benefit. I really appreciate you. I hope that you have a wonderful end of year, and I hope that 2024 is your best year so far. So we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day, everybody.